Elizabeth sat in her cozy armchair by the window, looking through the morning mail, advertising brochures, bills, and an official letter from the bank in between. She opened it, not even realizing that a few lines on paper would change her life. Dear Mrs. Wilson, we regret to inform you that your retirement account was closed more than 10 years ago, and the balance has been transferred to the account you specified. For further details, please call. What is this nonsense? She muttered as she read the letter a second time. I didn't close anything. Elizabeth could not believe that her retirement account was gone. As she had always considered herself cautious, never making financial decisions without careful thought. This must be a mistake, she said to herself, putting the letter away. I'll find out. But her heart was beating faster. How could she have missed such an important thing? Why hadn't the bank notified her earlier? Elizabeth immediately picked up the phone and dialed the number from the letter. Her fingers trembled as she listened to the automated voice. Your call is very important to us. Please hold. The time dragged on unbearably. Finally, an operator appeared on the other end. Hello, this is Mrs. Wilson. I received a letter saying that my pension account has been closed. Can you explain what happened? The operator began to verify the information. His voice remained neutral, but each pause made Elizabeth worry even more. Mrs. Wilson, your account has indeed been closed. No, according to our records, it happened in 2013. The funds were transferred to the account you provided in your statement. What statement? Elizabeth was outraged. I didn't sign anything. The operator calmly replied, you can go to the bank branch to see the documents. I can't help you any further. These words sounded like a sentence. Elizabeth hung up the phone, but her mind was full of questions. Elizabeth began to recall how many years ago she had an advisor handling her financial affairs. She had trusted him like she trusted herself. His smile always seemed sincere and his advice professional. Maybe it has something to do with him. But why don't I remember anything? She realized that she had to act. Elizabeth quickly got ready and headed to the nearest bank branch. Her steps were quick and her thoughts were chaotic. At the bank, she met with a manager who offered to review the documents. To her surprise, there was something in the file that looked like her signature. That's not my signature, she insisted. I never closed the account. The manager offered to conduct an internal investigation, but hinted that it might take several months. I don't have a few months. This is my money, my pension fund, Elizabeth exclaimed. She left the bank feeling helpless. She had a long road ahead of her, but she knew she would not give up. I will find out the truth, even if I have to turn the world upside down, she promised herself. After returning home, Elizabeth could not find peace. A letter from the bank, conversations with the teller, and a visit to the branch only made her feel more betrayed. She decided to focus on finding those who might have been involved in her problem. Elizabeth is a 60-year-old woman who has worked as a school teacher all her life and has always been respected for her integrity and kindness. For her, the pension fund was a symbol of stability and merit for all her years of hard work. Her house is small but cozy. Each room holds memories, photos of children, gifts from students, favorite books. It is her fortress, a place where she has always felt safe. Elizabeth has 2 children, her eldest daughter Kate and youngest son James. Kate is a successful lawyer who moved to New York. Her life is full of endless meetings, calls, and cases. Kate always seemed to Elizabeth to be the most responsible, but their relationship has grown cold due to the constant lack of time. James is an artist who is still looking for his place in the world. He lives in a small apartment and often turns to his mother for financial help. James is kind but indecisive. They always seem so different, Elizabeth thought, but now they are both far away from me. One, Peter Grayson, is a financial advisor. Elizabeth had once entrusted him with all her savings. He seemed like a professional, elegant suit, persuasive voice, and impeccable recommendations. Mrs. Wilson, you can trust me. I will do everything I can to make your money work for you, he often repeated. Now Elizabeth remembered that Peter had disappeared from her life as suddenly as he had appeared. 2, Sarah is her best friend. Sarah knew all of Elizabeth's secrets. She had always been there for her in times of need, but lately their visits had become rare. "You always think you can do it all by yourself," Sarah would say, "but you're not a superhero. Ask for help when you need it." Elizabeth recalled the first time Peter suggested that she invest in long-term assets. "This is your guarantee of a peaceful retirement," he said. "Imagine traveling, favorite hobbies, gifts for your grandchildren." She believed him because she had no reason to doubt him, but now every word he said seemed like a lie. Elizabeth tried to contact Kate, but her daughter was busy at work. James answered the phone, but his reaction was indifferent. Mom, it's just money. You've always found a way," he said. "Don't worry, it'll all work out. It will work out." "James, this is my life, my peace of mind." Elizabeth was outraged. Elizabeth's mind was racing, though she could not shake the feeling that someone close to her could have been involved in the disappearance of her money. Why can't I just trust?" she thought. "Maybe Sarah knows something. Or maybe it was Peter who reappeared in my life." Elizabeth decided to call Sarah. "Sarah, I need your help," she said. "I don't know who to trust anymore." Tell me everything," her friend replied, "and we'll figure it out together." This was the first step towards finding the truth, but the journey promised to be long and painful. After talking to Sarah, Elizabeth felt that she could no longer sit idly by. Her calm, measured retirement had suddenly turned into chaos. The only way out was to take action. But where to start? Elizabeth decided to start with her financial documents. She went upstairs to the attic, where she kept old boxes of papers that once seemed unimportant. Why did I put this off for so long? She thought. Maybe the answer was here all along. In the boxes, she found copies of contracts with Peter's financial advisor, account statements that she had previously found confusing, letters from banks she hadn't paid attention to. It all looks like a foreign language," she muttered. "I need someone to help me understand." Elizabeth decided to visit her local bank branch. The line seemed endless, but she waited patiently, feeling her heart pounding in her chest. When she finally approached the consultant, he greeted her with a professional smile. "How can I help you?" the young man asked. "Emma, I need information about my pension fund," she replied. "I can't understand what happened to my payments." The consultant checked the system and explained that all transactions looked legitimate, but some transactions seemed unusual. "It seems that the main account for payments was changed a few years ago. That could be the cause of the problems," he said. "Do you know anyone with that kind of access?" Elizabeth shook her head. She remembered that she had allowed Peter to update her information a few years ago. Peter Grayson's name kept popping into her mind. His confidence, brilliant presentations, and promises of a carefree future now seemed like a trap. If it was him, Elizabeth thought, it was my fault for trusting him. But how could he do this? Elizabeth called Sarah and invited her home. As usual, her friend arrived with a thermos of coffee and a willingness to listen. "I found the documents, but I don't understand what they mean," Elizabeth admitted, "and the bank said that the account changes started a long time ago." Sarah suggested that we go through all the papers together. We need to find a lawyer or someone who knows about finances," she said. "You shouldn't have to deal with this alone." While the friends were sitting at the table analyzing the documents, Elizabeth's phone rang. The number was unknown. "Ms. Wilson, it's Peter Grayson," the voice said. "I'd like to meet with you. There is something important we need to talk about." Elizabeth froze, clutching the phone. It's him," she whispered to Sarah. "Peter, he wants to meet." Sarah warned Elizabeth it could be a trap. "He's up to something, but if you want to know the truth, go, but not alone." Elizabeth hesitated, but decided to agree to the meeting. She felt it was a chance to get answers that could change everything. Elizabeth could feel her heart sinking with every step she took toward the cafe where she was to meet Peter. The sun-drenched area and the familiar smell of freshly brewed coffee seemed unnaturally peaceful at this moment. Her anticipation was clouded by fear and uncertainty. Peter was already waiting at a table in the corner, dressed in a business suit and wearing the same confident smile that had once convinced her to trust him with her life savings. "Elizabeth, it's good to see you," he said as he stood up. You look great. Come on, Peter, she replied coldly, sitting down across from him. What do you want to tell me? Peter took a deep breath, as if to gather his courage. Don't you should know that your pension fund hasn't disappeared, but it's not where you think it is, he began. A few years ago, I moved your money to a different high-risk fund. It was supposed to bring in higher returns. But it went wrong. Elizabeth clenched her hands into fists. You did this without my permission, she asked sharply. Peter explained that the new fund had promised quick dividends, but the economic downturn had caused the investment to lose almost all of its value. I thought I'd get it all back before you knew it, he excused himself. But things got out of hand. Elizabeth felt a wave of anger wash over her. You knew it was risky, but you did it anyway. You gambled with my future, Peter. She rose from her chair, ready to leave, but Peter held her back with his words, if you leave now, you will never know the whole truth. Please sit down. When Elizabeth sat down, Peter continued, this is not just about risky investments. I also used some of your money to cover my debts. I was having problems with my business, and I thought I could fix it quickly. But it only made things. Elizabeth froze. Her trust was betrayed not only professionally, but also personally. Did you take my money for yourself? She asked, barely holding back her tears. Do you even realize that I am now left with nothing? Elizabeth could not contain her emotions. You knew that this money was my only security for my old age, she cried. How could you do this? Peter tried to justify himself by saying that his intentions were good, but that did not calm Elizabeth down. You have ruined my life, Peter. And now what? How are you going to fix it? Peter said he wanted to help her recover some of the money she had lost. I have some assets that I can sell, he said. It won't bring it all back, but it's a start. Elizabeth did not believe his words. Your promises are worthless, Peter. I can't trust you anymore. The conversation ended without a final decision. Elizabeth left the cafe with a heavy heart, but with a determination to fight for her future. And if he thinks this is the end, he's wrong, she thought. I'll find a way to get mine back. Elizabeth couldn't sleep the whole night after her meeting with Peter. Her mind was filled with thoughts of how he had ruined her life. The next day, she decided to take action. Instead of waiting for his promises, Elizabeth went to his house, determined to get some answers. Peter was clearly surprised to see her on his doorstep. Elizabeth, what are you doing here? He asked, trying to hide his embarrassment. We haven't finished our conversation, she said, stepping inside uninvited, and I'm not leaving until you've explained everything to me. His apartment looked luxurious, which fueled her anger even more. Elizabeth got straight to the point. I don't want to hear excuses, Peter, she said. I want to know why you decided to use my money for your own problems. And how you plan to pay me back for everything I've lost. Peter sighed, as if he didn't know where to begin. I made a mistake, he admitted, but I didn't think it would go this far. I really tried to make things right. He started talking about his financial difficulties. His business was on the verge of bankruptcy, and he was forced to take out risky loans. I thought that if I could pay you back quickly, you wouldn't even know, he said. Elizabeth was shocked by his irresponsibility. You were gambling with my future, Peter. That was my last savings. How could you take such a risk? Peter suddenly went on the offensive. What about you? Did you ever think about me? He said, raising his voice. You always trusted me, but you never asked me if I needed help. I was desperate, and you were the only person I could turn to. Elizabeth felt her anger mix with surprise. You didn't even try to ask me for help, she replied. You just took what wasn't yours. The conversation turned into a loud conflict. You don't understand what it's like to lose everything. Elizabeth screamed. I lost everything because I trusted you. Peter seemed to realize for the first time the magnitude of his actions. His eyes filled with tears. I know I've done wrong, he said quietly, but I really want to make it right. Just give me a chance. Peter's words touched her. She could see that he was truly sorry, but her heart remained heavy. Don't know if I can ever trust you again, she said. But if you want to help, show it with actions, not words. Peter proposed a plan to sell his assets to partially compensate for Elizabeth's losses. She agreed to think about it, but her doubts remained. "This is your last chance, Peter," she said before leaving. "Don't let me down again." Elizabeth stood on the doorstep of her house, holding an envelope with documents. It contained an agreement that Peter had offered to partially compensate her for her losses. But could she trust this man after everything that had happened? Her heart was beating faster, and hundreds of questions were running through her mind. Just as she was about to open the envelope, her phone rang. It was the lawyer she had contacted earlier. "Elizabeth, I've looked over the proposed documents," he said, "and I have to say that there are some troubling clauses. They could leave you with no real guarantees." These words confused her. She realized that Peter could be manipulating the situation again. Elizabeth felt her anger start to boil again. "Can't he just do something honest?" she asked the lawyer. But the lawyer advised her not to sign anything until she fully understood all the implications. This was another blow to Elizabeth. She immediately went to Peter's office. Even his surprise was evident when she entered the room with a serious expression on her face. "We have to talk," she said, sitting down across from him. "You promised to fix everything, but instead you're trying to deceive me again." Peter looked confused. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "I did everything I could to help." Elizabeth laid the documents on the table and pointed out the problematic points. If you really wanted to help, why do these clauses guarantee that I will get almost nothing?" she asked. Peter tried to argue, but Elizabeth wasn't giving him any more room to dodge. "You've already ruined my life once, Peter. If you don't change your attitude, it will be the end of us, and I will never trust you with another word," she said. After a long pause, Peter gave in. "You're right," he admitted. "I made a mistake. I wanted to make things look better than they really are. But I don't want to lose you anymore. I'll rewrite everything to make it fair." His words sounded sincere, but Elizabeth remained wary. On the way home, Elizabeth couldn't stop thinking about whether Peter had really changed. Her heart was torn between the desire to regain her lost trust and the fear of being deceived again. The documents were still on her desk, but this time she was in no hurry to sign them. She knew that it could be the beginning of a new page or another trap. I have to make the right decision, she told herself, but how do I know if it's the right one? Elizabeth sat at the kitchen table, looking over the documents that Peter had rewritten after their last conversation. They looked fair, but could she trust him now? Her thoughts were chaotic. Every attempt to analyze the situation ended up returning to the question that tormented her the most. Can I give him a second chance? She remembered the first time Peter had offered to help her. His words had seemed so convincing then, his promises so sincere. She trusted him because he was not only a financial advisor, but also a friend. I allowed myself to believe that he knew what he was doing, she thought. These memories gave her mixed feelings. On the one hand, she remembered the moments when he really helped her. On the other hand, the pain of the betrayal was too much to forget. The documents in front of her seemed flawless. The lawyer confirmed that they met her requirements. But this did not relieve her internal tension. What if this is another trap? Elizabeth asked herself. Her fear of being deceived paralyzed her again. That evening, her old friend Mary came to visit her. "You look tired," Mary said, sitting down next to her. "What happened?" Elizabeth shared her doubts with her. "I'm afraid of making a mistake," she admitted. What if I say yes and it's a lie again? But if I refuse, I might lose the chance to rebuild my life." Mary listened carefully and then answered, "Sometimes we have to take risks, but not blindly. Listen to yourself. What does your heart say?" After talking with Mary, Elizabeth realized that the key to her decision was not the documents, but her ability to forgive. "If I hold on to anger and mistrust, I will never be able to move on," she thought. The next day she met with Peter. "I'll sign the papers," she said, "but remember, this is your last chance to prove that you've changed. If you deceive me again, we're done for good." Peter looked relieved. Won't let you down," he promised. "You'll see that I'm serious about this." After the meeting, Elizabeth felt strangely relieved. She had made a choice and now had to live with its consequences. Akui did everything I could, she told herself. Although she signed the documents, her doubts remained. She knew that her decision could lead to both the restoration of what she had lost and new disappointments. Elizabeth stood on the doorstep of her home, holding a cup of hot tea. The morning sun was gently illuminating her face, but there was a tinge of anxiety in her eyes. Her decision to give Peter a second chance had been made, but what would happen next? Is this really the right path? She asked herself. The days after signing the documents were strangely quiet. Peter didn't make any drastic moves, and the new financial calculations looked promising. But Elizabeth couldn't completely relax. Something is wrong. Everything is too perfect, she thought. She decided to wait for the first results and leave her doubts in the background. Elizabeth began to think about her life beyond her financial problems. She remembered her longtime passion for painting. Why not try it again? She decided, buying a canvas and paints. Painting became her therapy. Each brush stroke seemed to wash away her pain and insecurities. Her friend Mary stayed by her side. "How are you?" she asked one evening. "You look calmer." Painting helps," Elizabeth replied, "and so does your advice. I feel like I'm becoming myself again." These words made Elizabeth realize that even in her darkest times, she was not alone. A few weeks later, Elizabeth received a letter from the bank. It said that the first phase of her financial recovery had been successfully completed. This was good news, but it was accompanied by unexpected news. "What is this?" "Akona," she thought as she unfolded the additional document. There was a mention of another account that used to belong to her, but had been closed. This aroused her new suspicions. Once Elizabeth was faced with a choicing: call Peter again or figure it out on her own. "I can't trust blindly anymore," she decided, and made an appointment with another financial advisor. Despite everything that had happened, Elizabeth realized one important thing: her strength was in her ability to move forward despite the difficulties. "I am no longer afraid of the unknown. It's just part of life," she thought. Should Elizabeth have trusted Peter completely? What would you do if you learned about new financial details? Is it possible to find new meaning in life after such a shock? Elizabeth made the first stroke on her new canvas. The colors intertwined to create an image that symbolized hope. "This is just the beginning," she told herself. Although she didn't know what lay ahead, one thing was clear: her story was not over. Thank you for being with me. Leave your comments and subscribe to find out how this story continues.